The Trump-class battleship sounds unstoppable on paper. 35,000 tons, 128 missile cells, hypersonic weapons, high-power lasers, and a railgun. But when Rear Admiral Derek Trink, the Navy's Director of Surface Warfare, said in January 2026 that he did not expect to be told to build a battleship when he got this job, the subtext was crystal clear. This is not what naval professionals wanted. While President Trump calls it the most powerful warship ever built, defense analysts predict the ship will never sail. So why does the United States Navy oppose this warship? To understand why, let's go to December 22nd. President Trump announced the Trump-class battleship, promising 2 ships as centerpieces of his Golden Fleet. The lead vessel, USS Defiant, stretches 860 feet long, longer than 2 football fields, and has a displacement exceeding 35,000 tons. For comparison, that is nearly 4 times heavier than an Arleigh Burke destroyer, which weighs approximately 9,000 tons fully loaded. The estimated costs are $15 to $22 billion for the first ship. Before we move on, remember that some of the United States Navy's aluminum ships are not even allowed to sail in storms because of the cracks they have. Follow-on vessels would cost $9 to $15 billion each. To put that in perspective, the Gerald R. Ford supercarrier costs $13 billion. The Congressional Budget Office estimates the Trump-class program could consume $17.6 to $18.9 billion for the lead ship alone. These figures immediately raised red flags because they represent funding diverted from submarines, destroyers, and fleet maintenance. Now here is where it gets interesting. The Navy initially wanted a destroyer-sized ship called DGX, but they realized they could not fit enough vertical launching system cells, the new hypersonic missiles, and a railgun all on a smaller platform, so the decision was made to build a battleship instead. But does building a bigger ship actually solve the Navy's problems? That is what we are about to find out. Do you think going larger is the smart move for naval warfare in 2026? Or is this just throwing money at problems? Drop your thoughts below, because this is where the Navy's strategy gets really controversial. Here is the fundamental problem. The Trump class directly contradicts the Navy's official combat doctrine. Since 2015, the service has operated under distributed lethality, spreading firepower across many smaller, networked platforms instead of concentrating it in massive ships. This forces adversaries to track and target dozens of vessels simultaneously. It complicates attack planning, and it ensures that losing one ship does not cripple your entire strike capability. Multiple surface action groups operating independently across vast ocean areas create what naval strategists call a targeting problem for the enemy. The Trump class does exactly the opposite, concentrating enormous offensive capability into single platforms that become priority targets. For the cost of one Trump-class battleship, the Navy could procure 3 to 5 Arleigh Burke Flight III destroyers, costing $2.5 to $2.7 billion each. Each destroyer carries 96 Mark 41 VLS cells. Simple mathematics shows the problem. 5 destroyers provide 480 total VLS cells versus the battleship's 128. Those 5 destroyers also provide 5 separate ANSPY-6 radars, 5 electronic warfare suites, and 5 independent platforms operating simultaneously across different locations. If an enemy sinks one destroyer, you still have 4 operational. If they sink your $15 billion battleship, you have lost the equivalent of 5 ships in a single strike. The Navy created the distributed lethality doctrine specifically to avoid putting all your eggs in one basket. Yet here, the Trump administration is telling them to build the ultimate basket. But everything I just described is not even the biggest problem. The real problems come later in the video. Modern naval warfare revolves around missile salvos, and China spent 2 decades developing weapons specifically designed to kill large American surface vessels. These are not theoretical weapons. China conducted live fire tests against moving ship targets in the South China Sea in 2020. The threat extends beyond ballistic missiles. China operates more than 510 intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance satellites, equipped with optical sensors, synthetic aperture radar, and radio frequency systems designed to track American carrier strike groups. A 35,000-ton battleship moving across the Pacific cannot hide. Modern anti-ship warfare does not rely on single precision hits. It relies on overwhelming defenses through coordinated saturation attacks involving dozens or hundreds of missiles launched simultaneously from aircraft, ships, submarines, and shore launchers. While the Trump class carries advanced AN-SPY-6 radar, 30 times more sensitive than previous systems, physics ultimately imposes limits on what any single ship can intercept when facing massed salvos. This is where it gets really problematic. The Trump-class battleship's proposed armament relies heavily on weapon systems that either failed or have not reached operational maturity. The electromagnetic railgun serves as the primary example. The Navy spent $500 million over 15 years attempting to develop a railgun capable of firing projectiles at Mach 7 to ranges exceeding 100 nautical miles. The program was canceled in July 2021 because engineers could not solve fundamental problems with barrel erosion, fire rate limitations, and system integration. The conventional prompt strike hypersonic missile faces different challenges. Known as CPS, it travels at speeds exceeding Mach 5 with intercontinental range. While the Navy conducted successful test flights and plans to deploy CPS aboard Zumwalt-class destroyers starting in 2025 and Virginia-class submarines by 2028, the system remains unproven in operational conditions. High-power directed energy weapons rated from 300 to 600 kilowatts represent technology unlikely to mature until the 2030s, exactly when the Trump class is supposed to become operational. Building a ship around weapons that are not yet operational creates enormous risk. Does that make sense, designing a ship around weapons that do not work yet? Let me know if you think this is just how military development works, or if this is a genuine red flag in the comments. This would also mean learning nothing from Zumwalt. Naval officers opposing the Trump class don't need to speculate. They lived through the Zumwalt disaster. The Zumwalt-class destroyer was designed to revolutionize surface warfare with stealth, electric propulsion, and the advanced gun system, capable of striking targets 83 nautical miles inland. The Navy originally planned 32 Zumwalts at $1.4 billion per ship. Instead, only 3 were constructed at $8 billion each, totaling $24.5 billion. The advanced gun system's ammunition cost approximately $800,000 to $1 million per shell. The Navy canceled ammunition procurement, leaving the guns inoperable. The Zumwalts became ships without a mission. The Trump-class battleship follows exactly the same trajectory. Ambitious technology promises drive initial designs, costs balloon during development, and production shrinks as reality sets in. Mark Cancian, senior advisor at CSIS, states flatly, "This ship will never sail." Here is the truth. The Trump-class battleship will spend years in design studies, consume billions of dollars in development funding, and will likely face cancellation by future administrations before the first ship launches. That pattern has repeated across American defense procurement for decades. The Navy needs more submarines in contested waters, more destroyers providing distributed air defense, more unmanned systems, and adequate funding for maintenance. Building two $15 billion battleships diverts resources from those priorities, while creating expensive platforms that contradict the Navy's distributed lethality doctrine. The Trump-class battleship is not a Navy program. It is a political announcement dressed in naval terminology. That is precisely why America's surface warfare professionals hate it. They understand that winning wars at sea requires strategy, not symbolism. Make sure to subscribe to Shipline.